so much more. You guys have been contributing such.
And we are live. So here we are once again, evening crypto with a HODL report. Just wrapping up watching DNI stream and the Zoo stream before that. So for those of you that are tuning in now, XRP Carolina first in the stream. Annalise George, sorry, Annalise, how's it going? So for those of you that are tuning in on the replay, I feel like everything's out of whack. I think my camera wasn't positioned right, and I feel like I'm like too short on the on the camera. It's looking kind of funny. So real good to see everybody. Those that are coming in on the replay, just take a few minutes, wait for people to pop in, introduce a few as they do bounce in. Definitely looking forward to tonight's stream. If you came out of DNI stream, talking about some interesting topic. If you're on the Zoo stream, they had SAS on all the way over from Australia. So it seems like there's a growing Australian viewer base involved in the community, and it's really great to see. We're leveraging really all sides of the world, so it's really awesome. So just as I was getting the stream started, I started broadcasting at all. I had no audio, so glad streaming in here. Give everybody a minute to get in, and then we're gonna really start kicking it off here. So Spanish Fly, hey, glad you're checking in. Glad to see you on. Let's see here. All right, they're doing a slow roll in, kind of like XRP growing too. Let everybody come in little by little. So here we go. All right, well, let's get started about talking about something interesting as people roll in, and then we're going to get into the more topical points that I wanted to bring up this evening. So yeah, anybody who can tweet it out, that'd be awesome. Go ahead and tweet it out. Thumbs up on the channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, this for anyone who's bouncing in now. Anybody who is watching the replay, if you're new to the channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Hit the bell next to subscribe if you want to be alerted once we go live. I don't think the alerts work for anybody that's in the XRP community. That's how I've pretty much come to that conclusion. I don't really get alerts. I get alerts very temperamental. I think that's YouTube's way of getting us back for some reason. So Chip, great on the business call. So glad you're logging in. Fantastic. So all right, people are starting to pull in here. Alex Yeet, good to see you. Richter, what's up, man? Good to see you on. And let's see. All right. We got a decent number here. So like XRP, does that say Mikey? Mikey or Mickey? Mikey. Good evening. Glad that you made it on. This is awesome. All right, so XRP Angel Connie, glad to see you on as well. As I started last time, and Chip really was the impetus to doing this, always recognizing the first person that jumps into the stream. So I wanted to up the ante a little bit, and anybody, first person that makes this in the stream gets free XRP complimentary of the XRP tip bot. Actually, it's coming from me, but we're using the XRP tip bot to send it your way. So tonight, it looks like it's XRP Carolina, and I don't see that I have you in my contact list. Let's see. If I don't have you here, I'm going to have you just throw in your Twitter. If you want to DM me, I don't see it on here. Your Twitter is. If you don't have XRP tip bot, then I don't know if I'll be able to send it to you. But if you want to, I take that back. There you are, right there. All right. What do we have here? Here we go. Free XRP coming your way. Bam. There we go. XRP Carolina, the big winner of the evening. So here we go. Let me scroll back down. I was a little bit too far up. XRP Carolina free. I got it. I found it. You're in my XRP tip bot as a awesome. Edward, what's up, man? Good to see you on. Vet Bro, Robert Clark. Good to see you logging in. Squintin. I think I've seen Squintin around before. Sometimes I see a lot of new names, and then I find out people that I've been going back through some previous videos from the beginning, and then I start seeing, you know, common names that pop up. It's really awesome, you know, to see you know, how long some people have really stuck with my videos, you know, through the growth of the channel. You know, it's really cool. So tonight, as you saw in the thumbnail, if you saw the thumbnail, I want to focus on a couple different things. We want to, you know, emphasize that cryptocurrency apparently is bad for the economy, as noted by central banks to some extent here, as we've seen many of the larger banks picking on the digital asset space. Obviously, we also know that many in the banking space have been adopting into blockchain or the digital asset space. But what we're going to focus in on is the fact that over the past 10 years, banks have paid around and probably more than $243 billion in fines in the last 10 years. And some of these banks have paid huge fines. And it's not just because they made a mistake. It's because their mistakes were fraud and really you know, bordering on embezzlement. But we're gonna get into that in a little bit, because I think it's really interesting. But before we kind of drill down, or after we drill down into banks and why cryptocurrencies, according to them, are then bad for the economy, we're going to look at the relationship between MoneyGram and XRP. We're not going to rehash the fact that that Ripple bought 10% stake or 10% shares of MoneyGram. Nice investment there. We're going to drill down and the fact that this relationship between them obviously has been ongoing, but with this new investment, with some of the things that have come to light, it also looks like MoneyGram has already put in place some of these rails of XRapid, you know, or XRapid on some of their rails. And so this is going to be interesting to look at, interesting to identify. And when we focus in on utility, and utility is the phase that we're in right now, because we've already gone into the identification phase of digital asset, of blockchain technology. We've gone into the beginnings of adoption of blockchain and the growth of the blockchain space. Now we're getting into further adoption, but also further adoption through direct utility. Direct utility also then the outreach or the movement into mainstream. So yeah, I think that's really important. So all right, so let's look. Let's kind of take it back a step. And what I want to do is go back to what we were talking about on Saturday. I kind of wrapped it up, focused in on Zimbabwe. And so I wanted to focus in on this again, not rehash what we talked about. But one of the things that was brought up is that Zimbabwe wanted to 2 steps forward. I like the 2 steps forward too. We're gonna start with 1 step back, and then get ready, because we're definitely gonna take 2 steps forward. So we had talked about the fact that Zimbabwe wanted to kind of reinvent themselves, reinvent their currency, and rolling out their new currency, their new currency, really a way to protect their own economic independence, really establishing a strategic path to a successful economy. And that's what it's really all about. They want their independence. They want to pull away from allowing people to trade in or utilize multiple currencies, which has really been the case now for many years in Zimbabwe. Now, if you look back maybe about a decade, Zimbabwe faced about 500 billion% inflation. So we look at what happened in Venezuela. Venezuela, I want to say had about 10 million% inflation. That means the value of their currency, isn't even worth the scrap paper that you write on. Zimbabwe was even worse. It was too costly probably to use the butane in a lighter to light the money on fire in order to use it as tinder as a fire starter. So it was just valueless. So but now as you see this movement in Zimbabwe, as we see in many other countries, trying to recapture and establishing their independence. So in this scenario, one of the things that I really wanted to look at, and I said, what, Zimbabwe would be the perfect case for adopting blockchain, for adopting cryptocurrency as a mechanism to actually rebuild their economy. And so, we didn't really see that happening, but it really made me think about a few things. And one of those is that when we start working with a third world country, a developing country, whatever it might be, any country that it is really an outreach for international aid program, whether it's through the IMF, whether it's through the United Nations, whether it's through foreign aid from the United States. At this point, since we have the technology that's actually available, we can actually put in place. I'm not saying, there's really not a mechanism to make this happen yet, but it could be. The technology exists to where we could look at these countries and say, look, if you want the millions and millions of dollars, the billions of dollars that we're going to transfer over to you, then what we really need to do is put this transfer of currency on the blockchain into a digital asset, and that's how you're going to get your support. This is how you're going to get your financial aid. Now, with that, we're also going to have a requirement on the books that every single digital asset that you spend, so every XRP that you spend, let's say moving forward, we also want to have a direct tracking of which address you're actually sending this currency to. And the thing is that we are then also going to come back and audit the movement of this currency, being that everything is then traceable on the blockchain. You send us a report of where you say you spent the funding. We're going to then compare it to what's on the blockchain. We're going to do an audit. If we see an address that doesn't exist, you're going to tell us what this address is. Now, the reason why I bring this up is because in many instances, when we have transfer of payment to many of these countries that are in a dire scenario and they're reaching out, many times it's because of a corrupted political environment, similar to what was happening in Zimbabwe, similar to what happens in many other countries, where the money given is then distributed amongst the cronyism that goes on, and very little of it actually reaches the people. Now, I want to bring that point up because it kind of relates into some of the things that I wanted to talk about, which then has to do with the AML requirements on banks and now on digital asset exchanges. AML being anti-money laundering, support of terrorism, etc. So this is a requirement that banks must adhere to. This is a requirement that digital asset exchanges must adhere to. However, is this something that governments that have received money from central banks, do they then need to adhere to the same principle that we're telling banks and digital asset exchanges that they need to adhere to? So if the government can now take that money that we've then given them and they can do whatever they want with it without proving that the money we provided to them isn't then moving into the hands of corruption or money laundering through to terrorism or whatever it might be. So I think that is really a critical element. Now, in the past years, this is just focused on what happened in Zimbabwe and some of my thought process, kind of expand out from there. Then we start digging in and we say, okay, now let's look at the individual banks. So the banks are now bad-mouthing the digital assets and the digital asset exchanges. However, what about the banks? How many banks have actually been caught in corruption and money laundering schemes? And that's the direction that we're going to talk about here in a minute. So let me go over to our to our chat here and see what we have going on. Dom Chamby, there is some promotion, a petition that's going on to the Token Taxonomy Act to Congress. I would have to look at that. I want to take a look at it as well and see who's promoting it and exactly the full language and intent of this petition. But it is important. The people, have to be heard. Now, the thing is, just a side note here before we get it back into topic, there's some things at hand right now. One of those things at hand happens to be the fact that the Facebook Libra announcement sidelined the passing of the Token Taxonomy Act, Dom. So just an update on that space. I'm sure all of you guys have tuned in and you've heard what I've said up to this point. But what's happened due to the fact that Libra is there, Maxine Waters has specifically requested a hearing within the Financial Services Committee that Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook representatives are then pulled in front of, committee. They want to have a full hearing. We also know that the Senate is wants to bring them in for a hearing starting July 16th. So all of this is definitely involved. All of this is factored. Now, the thing is that, we do know that, I think my Wi-Fi just fluctuated here. Hang on. Nope. All right. So, we do know that, the fact that prior to this, Maxine Waters was actually in favor of allowing the Token Taxonomy Act through the Financial Services Committee. However, at this point, there were a number of delays that were already there. One of them, Dom, if you're not aware, one of the delays had to do with the fact that Maxine Waters wanted them to remove any mention of impact to taxes, to tax implication. They had to remove that component. At the same time, Maxine Waters had requested that they add an additional high-level Democrat from the Financial Services Committee, which they did do. So, those are some of the important criteria that was set aside by Maxine Waters to actually happen. And so then obviously we had this whole Libra mess. And now with the Libra mess, Token Taxonomy Act being brought to the floor in front of committee has been sidelined. Now, during this period of time, obviously there's things that we can do. One of those things that are in serious discussion right now, serious planning right now, and that has to do with getting a video series out in front of Congress. I've already spoken with Warren Davidson's office. They're open for sure to receiving that. They've actually asked for some specific pointers. So providing this video series to them, we already provided one video to them, which was definitely impactful to much of their outreach. The messaging that we were able to provide was then relayed to other staff members within other congressional offices, as well as to congressional representatives. This new video series will be shorter, much more specific to the point. There's still a lot of misinformation that's being spread and being held within the Financial Services Committee and by many of the other congressmen that are just simply not informed as to the reality of the information that is easily accessible, but misinformed about the reality of what's actually happening within digital assets and blockchain technology. Then we have the Shermanator, Brad Sherman, who's attempting to put together a committee in opposition. He hasn't proposed a bill yet, but he's attempting to get backers to propose a bill that's in direct opposition to what's happening with Token Taxonomy Act. So that's exactly what's happening, and we need definitely a lot more. So I agree, Dom. If we get a strong petition, if we get people on the ground, the petition is one thing, but you have to get to your individual representatives. The petition isn't going to convince the representatives that they need to vote a certain way. Outreach directly to their offices, outreach to specific individuals, picking up the phone and calling them and trying to identify where they stand on the Token Taxonomy Act is going to get you much further than having 10,000 people sign a petition. They're going to see the petition. It's not going to help get it through the Financial Services Committee, because at the end of the day, at the Financial Services Committee level, each individual representative is going to have to vote on passing it through committee to put it on the House floor. Once it gets to the House floor, individual congressional representatives are then going to have to vote on it. And in order to vote on it, we have to make sure that they're educated and informed on what they're voting for. So just a thought. I'm not negating this petition at all. By all means, I think it's important that it's another means. So any avenue that you can have to get the message out that people are in favor of the Token Taxonomy Act and put it in front is going to be important. But you need it coming from every single possible direction. We already know it's coming from the top down, meaning from the CEOs and large investors of the corporations. So they're coming in and lobbying on the top. And then you throw in the petition, you throw in the phone calls, you throw in the tweets, you throw in the emails, and now you have a full campaign that's actually impactful. And so, I really commend you, Dom, for getting that out. Keep pushing the message. Keep trying people to get to sign the petition. I think it's definitely important. So, all right, let's see. Where was I? All right. Dom, okay, there you go. First video was great. A definite push in the right direction. More videos such as these will be uber positive for the whole digital asset space. That's great, Dommy. I really appreciate that. I think so too. So, let's see here. Oh, there it is. Is this tweet here? Is that that's the link to the petition? All right, cool. All right. Let's see here. Anything else? All right. Let's go back. So, let's see. Yeah, great. All right. So, you said more informational videos and talks with representatives and general knowledge against FUD will only be beneficial. The other point that, and then we'll get back into topic. But the other point is really to focus in on what happens at the state level. So if you can get in front of your state representatives, I mean, it might be a little bit, monumental as far as a project. We got to go back, Marty. But we've got we've got states that are becoming more and more digital asset or crypto friendly. If you look at like Wyoming, they've definitely moved in the right direction. And so if we look at what Wyoming has done, can that be done in other states? And if you get a state representative that's friendly to that, you start a little fervor, the process may be a little bit quicker than if it's going through Congress. And at least you get some normalcy and some regulatory clarity at the state level that can be definitely impactful. So now let's go back to the topic at hand. So we kind of left off. We want to focus in on banks that have been caught in corruption and money laundering schemes. Now we think, okay, maybe these are small banks. Yeah, Dan, exactly. Ohio is definitely going all in. Plus, Warren Davidson is from Ohio. So here's a couple banks that you guys may or may not have heard of. They're relatively small banks that have been caught up in money laundering and corruption schemes. Number one, Wells Fargo. You guys probably never heard of Wells Fargo. Deutsche Bank. You probably never heard of Deutsche Bank. U.S. Bank, you probably never heard of them. There's a longer list. Wait till we get to that list. But where do we begin? Now, these banks have been bad-mouthing digital asset and cryptocurrency. You got a lot of these loud voices like the Shermanator in California, speaks before he thinks, doesn't know anything about technology, represents a lot that are in the high-tech space. But this list is very, very long. It's really amazing at how many of these banks get caught up in money laundering and corruption. But again, is it the digital assets? So let's take a quick look at some of these banks. Well, let's start with Wells Fargo. So Wells Fargo, 2018, Wells Fargo was fined $1 billion for insurance and mortgage abuses that also filtered over to auto loan abuses. 2016, Wells Fargo is fined $185 million opening unauthorized deposit and credit card accounts in an effort to boost its finances. Now, anybody else would actually be thrown in jail. Now, some of the people ended up, getting penalized. Some of them probably, did go to jail. Who knows how long they were there, if they ended up at all. But the point is that many of these banks are still in existence today. Deutsche Bank. Now, Deutsche Bank, I pulled out a couple here because I thought it was kind of interesting. Deutsche Bank, 2017, fined $630 million over Russia money laundering claims. 2013, Deutsche Bank, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Citi investigated for using corrupt practices to get business in China. Deutsche Bank ended up paying 275 million euro along with 7 other banks for forming an illegal cartel that was fixing interbank exchange rates. 2000, Deutsche Bank paid $95 million to resolve a tax fraud case using insolvent shell companies to hide tax liability from the IRS. So, and this goes on and on and on and on. The list, keeps getting deeper. It's crazy how deep it's going to get. U.S. Bank, 2018, U.S. Bank, $613 million fine to pay a charge for money laundering. A bank, they had poor anti-money laundering controls, so poor AML controls, which put the bank repeatedly at risk for being used as a conduit for criminals. So all of these banks, and yet they're singling out digital asset, right? So we're talking about transparency and more transparency. Transparency is what it's really all about. But the central banks and the Shermanator are so concerned and so focused on the fact that digital assets are being used for nefarious purpose, because obviously, from what we know, banks can never do any wrong, but digital assets apparently have centralized control by nefarious parties. Digital assets are used to launder money. Digital assets are not transparent and can't be tracked. Digital assets are only used for corruption. Digital assets are only used to circumvent laws and taxes. Oh, wait. It's actually not the digital assets that have been used for all that, but it's actually the banks using fiat currency that have been caught up in all of that. So it's kind of insane, when we look at the banks, speaking out against digital assets, and we see someone like the Shermanator speaking out against digital assets, when we know that he's funded by the lobbyists, from the big banking entities and the big credit card processing entities, and that's who funds his campaign, and that's who keeps him employed. Because here's a guy who has to run for office every 2 years. So he's beholden to the masters that manage the coffers, that pay his salary, that he gets from, running for office, basically, because each individual congressional representative goes into office, and it seems like every single one of them comes out a multimillionaire. And then you have to wonder, how it is that when they're a lifer in Congress, and yet they didn't really hold any other significant position, and yet this congressional representative comes out a multimillionaire, and then they have the audacity to sit up there and badmouth a technology that's actually trying to solve a problem that was identified during the financial crisis, during a financial crisis caused, in part due to the nature of the way banks were managing their funding, the way financial institutions were wrapping up mortgages and selling them off as investment, the way the government actually allowed and forced the banks into a position where they were actually creating looser lending practices in order to provide mortgage loans to people that couldn't afford them. So it's this big vicious cycle, but yet what do we hear outspokenly? We hear that it's digital assets that are the bad ones. The digital assets that, don't actually, serve a real utility in a service, process. So, and then let's drill this down a little bit more. Now, this is an article that actually appeared on MarketWatch, and this shows the banks, that paid a total of $243 billion in fines over the past 10 years And that's really from approximately 2008 through approximately February of 2018. Now, one of the quotes that I pulled out of this, which I thought was really interesting, it says most of these fines have been assessed for misleading investors about the underlying quality of the mortgages they packaged into bonds during the housing bubble. So that's kind of insane, that they even did that. It's insane that you see, at very high levels within the banking space, you see, a lot of fraud that goes on, and these banks are all still around, for the most part, so it's kind of crazy.